Alright, so this past weekend I went to YCS Chicago and I had a pretty good time. Everyone that I played against was pretty cool actually, so I had lots of fun matches. I ended up going 5-3-1, 5 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. So I'm pretty happy with that considering it's my first YCS. Um, and I feel like even though I could have done better if I had played my best, I feel like that's pretty good for my first showing, and hopefully I'll make day 2 next time. Um, and this is my deck that I ran at the tournament. Um, if you want to see in detail about some of my card choices, I'll have a link up here for my deck profile. It's mostly the same as before, but there are a few minor changes. Um, so then I'll jump into how everything went in the tournament. The wind-up engine went as well as you would expect. No complaints there. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to run any number other than these 11 wind-up monsters. Tour Guide was good. There was a lot of times where Tour Guide saved me, just because it's an easy rank 3 when you summon it. There was one time when I drew both Tour Guides, and I had to special summon it from my hand. And then there was a couple other times where I got Fiendish Chained, but usually its effect went through. And Bear was pretty good. The best thing about Bear was if game 1 I only played Bear and Thunder King, which actually happened a few times. Then my opponent would think I was playing Fire Fist and they would side wrong, which gave me a bit of an advantage in game 2 if I did poorly in game 1. And then Ryo was pretty good. Not as good as he was in my testing going up to the tournament. I wouldn't take him out, obviously, but he was usually just destroyed because my opponents would focus on him when he was out there. Duality is good. Tenki was good. Working with the bear. Dark Hole didn't really stand out, good or bad. Book of Moon was good. The MSTs were great. I wish you could play more MST, honestly. Lance was alright. I would have cut this for Mind Crush in retrospect. I got it to work once with Bear, and besides that, it was pretty mediocre the whole tournament. Factory is factory. And then trap wise, I didn't have any complaints. My traps worked as I wanted them to. One thing to note is I did want to play 2-dimensional prisons and 1 Mirror Force, but I forgot one of my 2 prisons at home, so I had to play 2 Mirror Force instead. It didn't end up costing me at all, so no big deal, but I would play 2 prisons instead of 2 Mirror Force if I had the option. And then Trapstun was pretty good. I don't think it won or lost me really any games, but it was usually solid. In my extra deck, or my side deck, I only sided Maxian a couple of times. I think I only drew it once. Valor, I only sided it in against spellbooks, and it was alright. Fissure and Soul Drain were pretty good. I drew them a couple times. Black Horn of Heaven was great. I sided this in a lot. This was my second most common card that I sided in. And Needle Sealing I never sided in. I put this in mostly for Infernities, which I never faced. Overworked was good, even though I never actually played a Fire Fist. I used this against rogue matches like Inzectors and Gravekeepers, and it was good. Light Imprisoning Mirror, I sided that in against Lightsworn and Bujins. And then Mind Crush was the MVP of the side deck. I put 2 Mind Crushes in almost every round. Though I think the only thing I didn't side at least 1 Mind Crush in was against Lightsworn. So Mind Crush was really good. I'm going to main deck 2 of them starting now. And then Dust Tornado was good when I needed another MST, pretty much. My extra deck I'm really happy with. My extra deck was almost perfect. I used every single monster in my extra deck, including both Abyss Dwellers, except for the Cowboy. The Cowboy was the only monster I didn't summon. And most of these monsters I summoned multiple times. I don't think I could have done without playing any of them, to be honest, except for the Cowboy, which I am considering cutting. Okay, and then I'm going to go into a round-by-round summary of how I did. I have a few cards here showing all the matchups I played against. So, round 1, I played against Insectors, and I lost the die roll, so he went first. And he opened up with Centipede and Ladybug to search Hornet. And then his second turn, he summoned Dragonfly, and I surrendered when he summoned Dragonfly. I had a few cards, but I didn't have much going for me, and I hadn't actually played any of my cards except for traps by that point, so I decided to surrender without giving away that I was playing windups, because I didn't think there was any way I was going to win that game. So then game 2, I open up with a lot of traps, and I just start using Rabbit and Magician together to pull more rabbits from the deck, and I just slowly beat him down and don't let him make any plays. Every time he tries to summon Centipede, I stop it. Okay, and then game 3, I open up just enough traps to keep him from going off. I end up using all of my traps, but he doesn't have any cards left after that. The thing is, neither do I, but I managed to top deck a tour guide, and I go into an engineer, and then I win after that. Round 2, I went up against Lightsworns. Oh, okay, so I won that 2-1. So then round 2, I went up against Lightsworns. I won the die roll, so I get to go first. And game 1, he has a full grave. He manages to establish a full grave, and I decide that I can push through to OTK him. Even though he has a Necroguard in the grave, as long as he doesn't have a Gorz or a Trag. And I decide to go for it because I'm under 3,000 life points, and if he can drop a Judgment Dragon next turn and win because I don't have any traps left. So I go for my push, but he does have a Gorz in his hand, so he survives with the combination of Gorz and Necroguard, and then he drops Judgment Dragon next turn, and he wins. If he didn't have the Judgment Dragon, I would have been able to win the following turn. So then game 2, I make a push and it goes through. I don't really remember too much about that game. I just remembered he didn't have very much. And then game 3, I make a Tyrus, and I just grind out all of his cards, and he doesn't manage to fill up his grave, and I win pretty easily. So I beat Lightsworns 2-1. And then round 3, I get matched up against Brandon Ball. He's playing Geargia. So game 1, I managed to surprise him. He thinks I'm playing Fire Fist, so he misplays and leaves himself vulnerable to double factory. And so I resolve both factory searches, and then I start floating my Magician and my Rabbits to search more rabbits from the deck, and I just blow him out with card advantage. And then game 2 and 3 both went pretty much the same way. Both games he was able to set multiple armors and get multiple searches off. And even though I was able to destroy 1 or 2 of them, he just kept playing more, and I couldn't handle the card advantage. And then he would make a full field of Gear Gigant X's and OTK me. In game 3, I had one last chance left. I use Magician plus Rat to go into a combination of Silent Honor Arc and Abyss Dweller, but he has a Black Horn of Heaven for the Abyss Dweller, and without the Abyss Dweller, my play fizzles, and then he wins the next turn. And then round 4, I'm up against Yurgia again, and this one goes better for me. I managed to keep Gear Armor off the field both of the games. I ended up winning this 2-0. Game one, I was saved by a top deck Tenki to pull a bear, and then I was able to pop his set gear armor, and follow that up with another bear attack to search Tenki, and then get a rabbit next turn. And my opponent afterwards said that if he would have played his mind control, he would have won. Which is true. I only had 100 life points at the end of that game. And then game two, I don't really remember, but I remember I kind of blew him out in game two. And then round 5, I went up against Gadgets, and I lost the die roll, so I had to go second. And then, so game 1, we both managed to grind each other down to no cards left. So then I top deck Tour Guide again, and Tour Guide lets me win. And then game 2, I summon a Tyrus and start pressuring him, but he manages to take out my Tyrus, and then he starts gaining advantage through his gadget searches, and I'm not able to keep up, and he wins. Game 3, I start and I have a Mind Crush for his turn 1 search. He searches one of his gadgets, and then I play Mind Crush, and I call that gadget, and I know every card that he has in his hand at that point, and I know all of the plays he has, so I win because I'm able to play around all of them. So I basically won that game just because I started with Mind Crush. Round 4, round 6, I go up against Bujins, and I won the die roll. But game 1, I end up losing. I don't really remember too much about game 1. I remember he had 2 Kaiser Coliseums, and I was only able to destroy one of them, and then I couldn't make any plays. Windups can't really play around Kaiser Coliseum very well. Game 2, I open an OTK, so I just OTK him on my second turn, and before he has a chance to do anything. He had a Yamato out, but I used Fiendish Chain, so he couldn't get any searches with that. And then game 3, I open up both Dimensional Fissure and Soul Drain, but he keeps summoning Susanovos, and I can't stop them. I don't have the traps to do it, and I end up running out of resources. Even though I have the floodgates up, I can't keep up, and I lose. So I ended up losing that 1-2. So at this point, I'm 4-2 in the tournament. Round 7, I get matched up against Mermails, and I lose the die roll. So he goes first. Game 1, he opens up with a big play. He goes into a Lavolval Chain and a Draco Sack, and he has a title in the grave that he detached from the Draco Sack. And I don't have any plays to try to take out his field, so I end up surrendering pretty quickly. I think on my second or third turn. And then game 2, I managed to summon both Abyss Dweller and a Thunder King Ryo, and my opponent just didn't have any plays to try to come out of that. And then game 3 was a really close game. It was back and forth the whole time. I make Abyss Dweller, and I put pressure on him, and I almost win, but he draws an Aqua Spirit at an opportune time, and he switches my Abyss Dweller to defense mode with Aqua Spirit, and I don't have any traps to kill Aqua Spirit or stop it from switching my Abyss Dweller to defense mode. So he just attacks over my Abyss Dweller with Aqua Spirit the following turn, and then I have 1 turn left to try to beat him. So I make an Acid Golem, and I attack over his Aqua Spirit, and that's enough damage for game. And then round 8, I went up against Gravekeepers. This game I should have played better. Game 1, I forgot about Necro Valley, and I tried to make a push, but my Rat couldn't use its effect because of Necro Valley, and my push didn't work because of that. So we end up grinding for a long time. The game 1 takes about 28 minutes. Uh, Eventually, I make an Acid Golem, and I almost have him, but he has a Mirror Force that I have to use Book of Moon to save my Acid Golem, and then he's able to set enough monsters to shield his life points, so my Acid Golem can't attack directly. Um, so I end up losing to my own Acid Golems burn in that game. And then game 2, I managed to gain advantage, and then I make a push with Silent Honor Arc and Tyrus, and he doesn't have anything to handle either of them. So he doesn't have any cards that can take them out without destroying them. So both my monsters are able to just attack him with impunity. And then that game we finished in time, so we didn't get to game 3, so we ended up tying 1-1. I think I probably should have won this game if I had played better in the first game of that match. So that was too bad, but my opponent was cool, so I'm glad that he managed to get a tie to advance at least. And then the very last round of the day, round 9, I was up against Spellbooks. If I won, I would have had enough points to go to day 2, which I would have. But I didn't end up winning. This is another game where I think that if I would have played better, I would have ended up winning. So game 1, I open up with Double Factory and a Tenki to search Rabbit, but he has a Solemn Warning for the Rabbit, which is the only card that could have stopped me in that position, because any other trap or anything like that, Rabbit would have dodged, and I would have gotten the Factory Searches off. And I don't manage to draw any other monsters the entire game, so I lose game 1. So that was unfortunate. And then game 2 was pretty simple. I just drew an OTK and won on my second turn, or it might have been my third turn. It was pretty early though. And then game 3, I draw really good cards. I drew Valor, Ryo, Mind Crush, Rabbit, Fiendish Chain, and one other card. So I had a really good opening, and my opponent didn't have anything. But I misplay a lot, and I end up using up all of my counters to his plays without gaining any real advantage. And he ends up going off, and I don't have any plays to keep up, and he ends up winning game 3. So I lost that match 1-2, which bumped me down to 5-3-1 for the day. So I was pretty happy with how I did. I think I could have played better, especially in those last 2 rounds, but I think I did pretty good, and I was very happy with how my deck ran. There are a few changes that I want to make to the deck. I'm going to make a new deck profile for my build that I'm going to be starting the next format with. Since the next format is going to be pretty much the same as this one until Primal Origins comes out, so I'm going to be basing my changes off of my results at the YCS, and also based off of I had a brief conversation with Timothy Bailey. I talked to him at the YCS. He was a pretty cool guy, and he knows what he's talking about with windups. So I'm going to be taking his advice on one card change. So be sure to check back on my channel. I'll have the deck profile up in a day or 2. So be sure to check that out. And hopefully you enjoyed the video.